Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome to America's Heroes Group. This time with a partner, Veterans Legislative Voice, and our ASG correspondent. Today is Saturday, October 7th, 2023. October is Breast Cancer, Mental Health, National Disability, and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We'll probably hit all those topics this month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer always is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have with us Stephanie Kalota, our U.S. Army Sergeant, first class when she was in the military. Now she's a founder and CEO of the Veterans Legislative Voice, her podcast, and our ASG correspondent. How are you doing today? Stephanie?
Hi, how are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So congratulations on your new podcast. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yes. A funny thing, everybody else, inside information that's been working with this, I kept forgetting to bring it up on the two previous times I've been on this show. So thank you for starting with it. Yes, I started a podcast, Veteran Legislative Voice, just a short 5 to 10 minute segments, just covering bills and different things that's been happening. Short and sweet thing and topics that pretty much we couldn't really fit into a whole 30-minute time block. So nice, short and sweet segment for everybody to understand.
Wow, I look forward to seeing that. Sounds pretty good. Now, tell us what's going on with the Speaker of the House. So he's McCarthy, as we talked about last week. You know, if you look kind of, weak or ill a little bit with his leadership skills, especially what happened with the near government shutdown that we avoided, thank God. So what is going on with that? Well,
okay, so I say this a lot. Congress is the original reality show, and this week has really proven that. So with everything that's been going on, I've watched the entire vote that's happened for the Speaker with vacating his chair, and it was very interesting. And anybody that really wants to watch, I can actually have the links on my podcast as well that you guys can watch yourselves. It was very interesting because it was only all of the debates and all of the infighting were all Republicans.
Wow.
Democrats kept really outside of this, except for the time when it came to the votes. For the starting of these type of votes, they usually ask for a voice vote, and it wasn't Kevin McCarthy who was in charge of the chamber at the time. They had referred it to a temporary pro tem speaker. And I believe it was Representative Womack. And when they asked for yeas and nays to vacate the chair, the yeas were very small. It was like just Matt Gaetz, Representative Gaetz, and his followers, those 8. And then the nays were very loud, the rest of the Republican Party. But when it came to the actual vote by individual, all of the Democrats voted yay. Yeah, and so a lot of things have been trying to be interpreted in that because no one has really found out what was the big reason why this happened, because Democrats could have easily just said present, like what happened with the Speaker earlier this year when Gaetz changed his from nay to present, so they had enough votes. They could say present and just stayed out of the entire voting process, and it wouldn't be counted in the math. So it really shows how the Democrats feel about McCarthy and everything that he's been handling in the past 9 months.
Is it really?
And one of those reasons is really the budget and the debt ceiling, because he kept changing his mind and he kept promising and breaking promises between both parties. And so that's one of the things that's been really difficult. And apparently there was some sort of agreement that happened when he met with President Biden and the other leaders when they were doing the debt ceiling. There was an agreement for the federal funding, but he never followed through on the agreement, and he reneged.
Wow.
And so that's been one of the biggest issues. That's the reason why the funding had been stalled so long, because he probably promised everybody. And, of course, that contradicts everything, and you're never going to make everybody happy.
Wow.
You're going to be ending up hurting everyone. And this really impacts a lot of military and civilian and veterans as well when we get down to it.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, too, because with the government shutdown, a lot of things don't happen. We have military members serving but not getting paid and then having to get back pay. And then you also have family members of those military service members that are depending on those paychecks.
Yes, and contractors would not even be paid. Like 90% chance that they wouldn't even be paid at all. They'll be furloughed, and they would be filing for unemployment.
That's really, so it seems that the most vocal people from the Republican Party tend to be the ones that aren't the most, don't have the real vision or understanding of how the government really works. Also, don't seem to have a clear vision of what they're trying to accomplish and kind of just ping pong back and forth on whatever is a hot topic of the day. Does that seem foreign? Is that a foreign idea?
I apologize. Can you say that again?
So it seems like the most vocal people in the Republican Party right now today are the ones that don't really have a clear vision for the party itself or for the government. And they also seem to be ping-ponging back on different topics, whatever's hot, to press buttons and try to stage theater almost, as opposed to getting real legislation done. Not to say that Democrats are necessarily better, but you don't see that from the Democratic Party. They seem more of a well-oiled machine. They know what they're trying to do. They know what they're trying to accomplish. Everything is kind of almost choreographed. Right,
and agreed upon before they even come out. Yes, I agree with that, and that does happen a lot. Actually, Representative Gates has been accused of seeking funding while he's doing this big fight in Congress and trying to make a whole lot of money out of that so that for elections for later, he'll be able to pretty much be reelected again. So it's been pretty frustrating and pretty everybody's in turmoil. One of the other things about this is that those small amount of people want very specific things that is the complete opposite of the other parties that have control. So you can't try to keep to very strict guidelines and expect everyone to agree to it. And that's been one of the things that has been the most frustrating during that time frame.
Is it a big deal that we don't have a speaker right now of the House?
It is huge because there is a timeline. McCarthy had a timeline of how to get all of the government funding bill completed, and all the caucuses were supposed to submit their plans. Everything was supposed to be done. There was a whole schedule for this. And now that's just thrown to the wind. And now the temporary speaker, I can't remember his name right now, but he would be, he basically set everybody out for a week, mostly to cool a lot of tempers because he was worried that there would be a fight actually ensuing, like during the speaker ballots last year, or earlier this year. So that's really possible. With any new speaker that we may have, we might actually see committee reassignments and changes that may happen, which can affect the armed services and the veterans committees and how effective they could be.
What's the pulse of the people about this whole situation? How are they favoring now that they've seen this kind of debacle in the Republican Party?
Oh gosh, it's mixed across the board because I think a lot of people have been. It really depends on how spun up they are on what's really going on and whether they pretty much depends on whether they're actually taking in on misdirections and lies that's out there, and then others that are actually understanding. A lot of people are frustrated and a lot of people are mad. Yes.
And this goes into November of next year.
Yes.
Right around the corner. We have an election coming up.
Right. November 14th is when the continuing resolution will end, and we have the potential of having a government shutdown again. It's really frustrating for the government funding because with the short-term understanding of what's really going to be the funding, military units don't know what to plan on, whether they will have the funding to actually send people to schools, whether they can take soldiers to weapons qualification ranges to basically get everybody qualified and have their readiness up. Veterans would also be affected because the government bill, the GI Bill hotline will not be available when there's a government shutdown. Other things will actually be stopped and furloughed when government shutdowns happen. A lot of things are paused on what they had actually asked for funding, and they're not sure whether they're going to get it in the time frame leading up to the end of the continuing resolution. So there's a lot of things that are affecting military and veterans right now. There's a lot of people that if they haven't gotten their PCS orders for moving from one station to the other, they're pretty much stalled. They've been pausing a lot of transfers and moves, so that affects military families as well.
And what's the news with Tuberville now? Is he still in his rant and rave right now?
Yes. So if anybody understands, Senator Tuberville of Alabama has been basically staying on a hold for military promotions. Typically, for military promotions, they just do a unanimous, everybody's okay with this, okay, cool, we're going to approve, and they do it by group. There's so many people right now that are waiting for their promotions to be approved by the Senate. It's over 300, and they actually calculated it would take over 700 hours to go through each individual person for a yay and a nay vote. So it's causing a lot of problems that's going on in the Senate as well. He's still holding on to the hold, and so they've had to do individual votes for the next chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff because General Miley's already left, and they've also done it for the Army, Air Force, and Marine Corps, I believe, are the three services. They're working on those right now, and they're hoping to go down the line, but they have to go by individual votes now. And there's a group of senators that don't want to pretty much agree to any bill until pretty much they have the government funding settled.
Okay.
And so that
back
can hold up
to December, maybe we're talking about, possibly.
Yes. So it's about 20 some odd. One of them I know is my Senator Rick Scott that want to hold off on any bills until they really get funding settled, and it's really crazy. So I don't know how that's going to be affecting the military promotions. I assume they would be, because I'll assume they would be until they say they're not. And so that can affect a whole lot of things as well. The problem with not going through with these promotions is that there's a lot of people that are in acting positions. There's a lot of deputies and XOs that are working both their XO job and their actual commander's job. And having that double work will really dampen down the quality of work and the readiness for anything that may happen. So it can be a real national security issue when it comes to this, because they're diverting and they're also delegating too much and separating their time out. So they're not going to be able to give them the full time frame that's needed for the job.
And I know it's frustrating for a lot of people in command because sometimes they're doing double duty, triple duty for the do jobs that they aren't necessarily in, but just filling in.
Yes.
Wow. Now, have you ever seen, or do you remember or recall, or having you research it, was there ever a time when Democrats caused a government shutdown and when they had control of the Congress and there was a Republican president or any president for that matter?
One of the most notable ones is when Newt Gingrich was actually in Congress, and I believe it was President Clinton, and that was the longest government shutdown we had until President Trump. And that was in the 90s. I believe it was 35 days. Trump had it for 38, I think. But was it the Democrats that caused that, or was that the Republicans? Because I thought Newt Gingrich was pretty much. It was the Republicans, but the Democrats were really fighting with it too. Okay. So it was. I would say it was both.
Okay.
I would say it was both because it was a fight on both parts. And if I cannot remember the specifics on that. I could guess, but I don't think I would be correct on that.
I can't remember either. I mean,
I was 9 years old at the time, so it wouldn't be something I would be watching on CNN.
Yeah, so. That was back in college or something like that. But yeah, it was. I mean, it's ironic that we keep going through this cycle over and over and over again, and we keep kicking the can down the road. The Republicans are lacking leadership. Seems like an organization. Also, it seems like. Who is the most likely person to be the Speaker of the House at this point?
It's kind of up in the air. There are a few candidates already showing out. I know Jim Jordan has already threw his name in. He was the first one to do that. If anybody knows Jim Jordan, he's the one that's been leading the impeachment on President Biden and other issues that's been happening in the Judicial Committee. Another one would be Steve Scalise. That one to me is a little bit more up in the air because he's currently battling blood cancer. So that's really scary for him. I would worry about his own health for that. As a person, I would really worry about him. And then Representative Elise Stefanik is also considering it. She is the chairman of the Republican committee right now, chairwoman, and she is, I would throw my support. I'm not a Republican, but I agree with the most, at least, for the things that she goes for. She's also in the Armed Services Committee. She does a lot for veterans as well. She has a good understanding of what goes in with those things. And I believe Representative Hearn from Oklahoma is also in, but I do not have a whole lot of information on that guy yet. He hasn't been that much involved with military and veterans, so I haven't had a lot of cross with him.
Will she at least be the first female Republican speaker?
Yes, she would, because Nancy Pelosi was the first, and she was the Democrat. So, yes, she would be the first woman speaker for the Republicans, which I think would be great.
It seems like an opportunity there.
Yes.
Walk me down in a little bit of time we have left. Because one thing I like about what you do is that you basically cut through for veterans and people that are, because a lot of veterans are interested in politics because we served in the military, and the government have had at one point at least a major control over your life. Whether you're going to get deployed, whether you're going to be stationed someplace, you worked for Uncle Sam for at least a brief period of your life.
Yes.
So in that regard, walk us through what is the impeachment for Biden all about, and is it legit in any way?
Ooh, okay. So it's tricky. So I haven't seen a whole lot of hard evidence on this. There's been a whole lot of things that the opponents of Biden have tried to throw out there. Now, right now, it's just an impeachment inquiry, and they're having committees on this. The actual inquiry hearing they had with witnesses were entertaining because they didn't actually have any evidence or knowledge of actual crimes that President Biden had possibly committed. One of the things that they're really that the inquiry is about is trying to see on whether President Biden is tied into any of the crimes that his son, Hunter, has possibly committed. There's been a few times and a few instances that people believe that Hunter tried to use his father, the vice president at the time or former vice president at the time, to try to bolster his own career and try to get some more money out of that as an influence. And so they're trying to find that and trying to find whether President Biden had benefited from his son's maneuvers financially. I have yet to see it. Once we do, we can be judged from that. But when that comes to it, we'll see how that goes. But I say I'm waiting until evidence comes until I make a final decision. If there's no evidence that comes, you might know what my decision would be.
Wow. Well, thanks for that. We really appreciate it. We ran out of time, but we're going to have you back again, of course. And what's the name of your podcast?
Veteran Legislative Voice. You can find me on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple iTunes, and I also put the links on my Facebook, Instagram, and X.
America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
All right, thank you.